Hey guys, how's it going? This is Tom Burkart from Car Revs Daily. I'm shooting a quick video because I've managed to get my paws on a Porsche Panamera S, and I thought it would be interesting to compare it with the Lexus IF, or excuse me, the Lexus ISF, which I was fortunate enough to have as a press loaner the other week. It was like the greatest week of my life driving that car. It's always sad because, you know, I don't actually, I write from home, so like I don't drive that many places, but I found myself running errands in the ISF all the time, totally unnecessary stuff. And I think it's interesting to compare it with the Panamera because, well, Lexus obviously benchmarked the BMW M3 and M5 really heavily for the ISF and its development, as well as, you know, a variety of other performance cars. They probably weren't looking as closely at the Porsche Panamera. So what is this? How is this car different than the ISF in terms of its value proposition and its core performance appeal for drivers? First off, you know, a lot of things come to mind right away. So the Porsche Panamera S, despite having a standard air suspension, is much more mechanical in the way it fires up. It's much gruffer. It has a really the ISF has a huge V8 burble on idle, but it's not nearly as mechanical feeling and as gritty as the Porsche. Whereas they have similar sprint pace. They're both about 4.6 seconds to 60 miles an hour, with lots of controls. Obviously, lots of buttons here and various things that you can alter all the setup. I've got the spoiler up right away, you know, naturally like you would. So that is distinct versus the ISF because the inside the Lexus is much more like a you know, it has great seats and it has carbon fiber and it has lots of stuff everywhere. But as far as the core like options for like vehicle dynamic options, as well as, you know, vehicle like appearance options, there are very few. Whereas this car has ride height adjustments, Sport Plus, damper settings. We've got, of course, that spoiler. It's got automatic stop-start that you can turn off. Many settings here that are pretty conducive to that type of like enthusiast driving appeal. And of course, it's also got a big V8. This is a Porsche's 4.8 liter V8 versus the 5 liter in the Lexus. But you really wouldn't know it because the Porsche feels much throatier, and it has a much more pronounced growl when it even is just idling. But driving down the road, you would expect that one of the downsides that the Panamera might have versus the Lexus is that it's going to ride really hard. You know, you would think with these, like, it has, you know, 20-inch wheels, and you might really think, you know, this car is going to ride extremely firmly, more like a Porsche Boxster or 911 or something, versus, you know, the type of like cushy appeal that even like the M5 is going to deliver, or the E63 or something like that. You know, those cars are still really posh. I mean, they're totally silent, and they can go to church, you know, on 5% of the throttle and be totally fine. And so, but the Porsche really isn't like that because it has air suspension that is so tunable with the Sport Plus, and regular settings. We've got the dampers. We've got past them now in Sport Plus, so it's lowering the vehicle as we speak. So now it's at its very low setting, and it rides really well. There's a little bit more of like initial impact harshness, and that's accentuated by the Porsche has like extremely firm and supportive seats. I mean, they just feel like really strong seats. You can't get any flex out of these things at all, and they have a fixed headrest as well, which is a little bit different than the ISF, because even though the ISF has like lots of bolsters everywhere on the sides of the seats and like a suede fabric with red bolsters and all that stuff you can see in the pictures, they're really just like their standard Lexus seats. So that's pretty different from the Porsche appeal because these are like what you might call standard Porsche seats. So that's you know, quite a different thing. So that was fourth gear, or third to fifth gear right there. We went from about 50 to 75 miles an hour, and it's got a really eager setup with the. Excuse me. I mean, the throttle is it has a lot of pushback. It's extremely heavily weighted. The steering is pretty light actually, but the throttle and the brakes themselves are pretty heavy versus the typical Lexus thing. So, other differences you might notice, I mean, the Panamera seems like, honestly, like a little bit louder than the Lexus inside. Of course, now that we've got it in sport mode, I mean, that's going to be pretty natural, because it does open the exhaust valves a little bit wider than it does initially, but it always feels like a little bit more, just a little bit more intense all around. So I'm not sure if these wipers are on automatic or what, but we've got a little drizzle here, so obviously not doing anything too crazy. We're just running a quick errand in the Panamera S to get a sense of the different feel. The Porsche steering is interesting because at low speeds it's extremely heavy, whereas at these speeds it lightens up dramatically, and it helps to make the car feel lighter than it is, because at those low speeds, I mean, of course, the car feels enormous and really, really heavy as well. Whereas the ISF, despite feeling like really planted and having a great like dynamic stance, it's just like unshakable. It does, and it also has really heavy inputs, but it doesn't really lighten up as much as you're going, as you increase the highway speeds. Whereas this car becomes like really relaxed and loses a lot of its weightiness as you drive down the road. And that's kind of a good thing, because it helps the car to feel a little bit more playful in the Panamera here than the ISF, which some people might mistake the weightiness for like a reluctance to turn in or do stuff like that. And even though that's not really the case with the ISF, the Panamera, it does feel a little more eager at these types of speeds. So of course, we're at 56 miles an hour. So versus this car was benchmarked at 120 miles an hour. Whereas, all of like the maybe American car makers are benchmarking their cars at like 70 miles an hour or so for like highway performance. I mean, that's really not how Porsche does it. So this car is just, I mean, at this point is still at like a loping, relaxed town cruise, you might call it. And that's interesting because it just gives the Porsche a much more like really roadworthy feel. You never feel like you're really stretching it. You feel like there's just always, like you'd have to be going 50 miles an hour faster than you are right now to really feel like you were, let's say, pushing the car's limits or maybe testing it out. So it really is an exceptional vehicle. Of course, it's like a size or two larger than the ISF as well, in terms of like price as well as like its overall dimensional factors, and there is like a little bit more. There's a little bit more sense of width in particular in the cabin in the Porsche versus the Lexus, but they're both pretty tight, to be honest with you. I mean, the Porsche Panamera is like it's great, and there's definitely plenty of room for all sorts of drivers, including like huge pro athletes. But you get in the back, and it is no S-Class. I mean, it has the full center console, so it's strictly a 4-seater, and it generally is just is a very focused machine, even though it is Porsche's first 4-door sedan ever. So some other quick differences. I mean, buyers often might not be cross-shopping the Panamera with like an ISF, but for me, I mean, those are like the greatest performance sedans that I've gotten my little paws on. So I wanted to compare them and try to get a sense of what they offer buyers and how they are taking a different look at that like high performance sedan ideal. And I think that they're very, very different, but they're both a total dream to drive. So we're gonna take another quick video in a few minutes, and you should check back if you want to see a little bit more about the Porsche Panamera S. All right, this is Tom Burkart from Car Revs Daily, and we'll talk to you guys later.